Welcome back to You Live. I'm now inside, and conveniently, when I was walking back in the building, I found Lily Richards out there.
Yep.
Just wandering the streets like some sort of person who wanders the streets.
Some kind of vagrant.
Some sort of walking person with books. And I have to say that if you could smell Lily today, she smells amazing, like a library.
Like a library.
Yeah.
I've just been describing to Connor, or explaining, that I'm wearing a perfume called CB I Hate Perfume, and instead of doing like normal girly fragrances, they do things or places. So like one's like through a winter forest or something, and one's like the summer of 1976. So I am currently wearing in the library.
Where can I find one of this? I want to get it.
Made down on Customs Street.
I will do that. Great plug for Made. There you go. Great store. I actually used to work.
sister's store.
Oh, really?
Sort of, yeah. She's one of the managers.
Ah, I used to work for the other shop that they used to own.
Ah, storeroom.
Devo.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. St. Luke's.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, really, really great television here. Anyway, how's the world of books this week?
Good.
Yeah?
I have no idea how to say the author's name, though.
Oh, give me a turn. I'm really good at reading words.
You're really good at French?
Yeah, where is it? Where's his name? All right, good start. Well, you know, when you put your name, you don't expect someone to put their name, you know, look at that. Who puts
underneath the title?
Yeah, it's like that.
So
Okay.
the title of the book to help everyone else is Invisible.
Let me get my French accent. Hughes. Is this going to be like
I think it's
different?
going to be Hugh.
Yeah. Hugh de Montalembert.
Yeah.
Roughly that kind of sort of thing.
And just
I'll give
as
you
a
the
warning, I'm not going to say the author's name ever again throughout this interview.
What about just Hugh de...
Hugh. We'll just call him Hugh.
Hugh.
He is a artist. And yes,
Wow.
Parisian, or French actually. He's from somewhere in
It
the
would make
farm.
sense that he's from France.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
That explains a lot. So
appreciate
he's a painter and he made documentaries, a very visual person.
Yep.
And in 1978, he lived in New York in an apartment, and a couple of thugs, as they're described, broke into his apartment one night, and he got into an altercation with one of them.
Fight.
Bit of a fight. Whilst he was fighting one of them, the littler of the two got his hands on some paint thinner and threw it at his face. And within a day, he was blind. By the morning, he was completely blind.
Oh, man.
So he went from being someone who was highly visual, someone who used his vision, obviously, in all of his art.
Yeah.
Not only in film, but the way that he saw the world. And then he could no longer see the world in that way. And he's written this book called Invisible, and it's a memoir, but it's kind of, it's really inspirational. So I was saying to you before how last night I spent the whole night, like, well, not the whole night, but a couple of good hours of it crying whilst watching a Holocaust film. And there's really no redemption in that, you know.
No.
The whole way through I was like, this isn't going to get good,
Yeah.
you know. Like, no, this isn't going to like turn a corner at some point. I'm going to be like, oh, yeah, Hitler, or he was just misinterpreted, or
Yeah.
you know, people didn't read him right. He was a really great guy. No, but with this, it's very enlivening. It's one of those great books that you find where even though something horrible's happened or occurred to someone, they've really been able to move through it in a really startling way that
Find
kind
the
of...
positive side.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just like you.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Except I haven't had anything, you know, bad happen.
Right.
So I
Which
just
is,
find the positive side in everything.
well, it's a bit harder when something really bad happens. to
Yeah, I
find
can
the
imagine.
positive side.
I can definitely imagine that.
Yeah.
But this sounds great.
It's in very small, you can see there, it's in really screen to there, really little chunks, just teensy little segments. It's something that you'd read in an afternoon, but it's something that the content of which will sort of percolate and stay with you for a lifetime. Something you do in an afternoon that'll stay with you for a lifetime.
I
That's
like
a good plug.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So he talks about colour, and he sort of investigates what happens when you can't see, and that your mind creates images for you in the absence of actual sight, and how seeing is a creation rather than just a perception. And so it's quite philosophical in one way, and philosophical in the sense of about how you ought to live your life and how you can navigate through. And he goes on these trips, like he used to travel heaps, but he's blind, right? And he's been blind for about a year. And he just gets on a plane and goes to Indonesia. And he goes to India, and he goes to all these places that people who can see perfectly would be afraid to go to, but he goes without sight. And there's a lovely little story in here, actually. He goes to India and he gets off at maybe Delhi, I think, and goes to collect his bags, but he can't find them, and he's been robbed.
Yeah.
Blind. I don't know if I say that now, actually. Robbed blind. And he's got no bags, and he's got no wallet.
Yeah.
And he thinks, oh, well, I just have to go back. I just have to go back to New York.
Yeah.
But after he goes into the line and goes to buy tickets, and he sort of feels this tap on his shoulder, and he gets his wallet put back in his hand and his bag's replaced by his feet. And he goes to say thank you, but they've gone. And he asks his taxi driver, and they've put him in a little taxi, and he asks the taxi driver, who were these people? And they were beggars. So people who had, less than he did, but realised that he was completely helpless.
Oh.
And so set about righting the wrongs that had occurred to him.
That's a great little story.
Yeah.
And you can find much more of that in Invisible, a memoir by that author. Don't try
And do it again.
Okay,
Do it well.
let's play a music video, and when we come back, another book we're going to talk about.
Because it reminded me of another book, so I brought that one in too.
Cool. All right, this is the XX, a wonderful track called Island. Islands from the XX there, and a great song, says James King. If it's okay in James King's books, then it's okay in mine, usually.
Is James King hard to please?
It definitely is hard to please.
It's not. He is hard to please, but it's just that his taste in music is so random.
It is.
And then he's so passionate when he either loves or hates a song. So you could bring up a track and he'd be like, no, this is the worst thing that has ever made its way into my head. And then something that you think he might not like, I love this song so much.
Does he
There's no rhyme or... No, but I don't want an explanation. No rhyme or reason. Just James King.
Yeah.
He sounds like my father, actually. Maybe he is my father in the pseudonym.
Your father's just on the air.
Lily, what is the second book you've brought in for us today?
The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. You've heard of this, hey?
Yes.
This is a book. And it's written by a guy called... Do you want to try that one as well? I can actually say his name because I've said it so many times.
Jean-Dominique Barbie.
Yeah, although you made that sound like it was 2 words, last word. Jean-Dominique Bauby.
Bobby.
He was the editor of French Elle. And,
Oh, wow.
in the heyday, so it was, I imagine, cocaine and fast cars and loose women, that sort of thing. And he had a major stroke. He was only in his 40s, I think.
Cocaine, fast cars and loose women will probably do that to you.
Yeah, huge
Don't
stroke.
do drugs and loose women and fast cars. You'll have a
Good
stroke.
advice from Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you.
Public service announcement.
From Tim Lamble's experience, that's what he's learned.
And he suffered from this syndrome called locked-in syndrome.
Okay, what is locked-in syndrome?
It's pretty much what you'd imagine. So he could not move. Or he could
So
only move
locked in
his
your body.
eye. He could only move his eyes. He was fully conscious, completely aware, but he had no control over his body whatsoever.
That sounds like the worst syndrome to ever have.
I reckon it sounds like a Buddhist hell. Have you ever heard of it? Like the Buddhists have different types of hell for certain karmic punishments. So like rapists or something get stuck to a rock and have a bird pecking at them for an eternity.
Yeah.
Being locked in your body but not being able to communicate. Terrible.
Oh, man. I would hate that. Passionately.
I think most people would. I don't think anyone out there is going,
but...
sounds
I could do a
alright.
bit of me time,
yeah, having such a good time. But imagine, at least you can move your eyes, though.
Well, yes, and by moving his eyes, that's how he dictated the book. So he set up a series of codes, painstakingly with his nurse, and he dictated this entire book. So not only, and it's beautiful, it's absolutely beautiful. You think about how poetry has to be so sparse and so sparing,
Yeah.
has such economy of language. Well, when you can only communicate verbally with your eyes, think of the editing you'd have to do. Every single thing would have to be necessary. You can't go backwards, So the eyes, series of blinks, they set up a code. And there was a movie of this, a really beautiful French film, actually. But again, it's very sad, and Jean-Dominique Bauby died. He didn't survive. But his experiences as communicated from inside this kind of tomb are really extraordinary, and they give you, again, this perspective on life, that when you have everything, you often don't stop to truly appreciate.
Yeah. I can appreciate that book in a big way, simply because of the way it was written. I have to say that those are 2 very inspiring books that you brought in today.
Both French men. Interesting.
Yeah. Did you watch the French rugby on the weekend?
I did. I watched the rugby.
Yeah. Is
I
that
got
why
right
you were
into
like,
that game.
maybe I'll get some French books?
Maybe I'll find some French people who've had horrible things happen to them.
Yep.
But written really inspiration. That was exactly what I thought.
I thought so. Actually, I want to ask Lily to quickly have a look over our poll.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Tim Lamborn. Now, today we did a bit of a sporting poll. Okay.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, well, we like sports. But if there could be only one game that you watched, of course the Warriors, which is the New Zealand League team.
I know.
Okay, I'm just schooling here.
Speak more slowly.
Yes. If they're in the grand final, right? And what that means, if they win the cup. I don't know what the cup is.
They win a cup.
They win a cup and the title. But which game would you rather watch or have some sort of relationship with rather than the other one? Which one do you not want to watch at all?
I'm not a huge league fan simply because I don't understand the rules as much. But I'm super interested to see what happens with the All Blacks and the Rugby World Cup. Part of me wants them to lose so I can go, look at all the money that you spent on nothing. And then another part of me...
That's a heavy self-serving sort of prediction you've got there.
No, it's not self-serving. I just think that if you're going to galvanise for something, why must it be rugby? If you can do all of this in a social, like as a social movement, if you can like confiscate waterfronts and you can pass laws,
that's true.
Why not use it for something like homelessness or like making sure that people, you know...
Yeah, it does. You're quite right. I like what we can do, what we really want to.
Yeah, and then apparently what we really want to do is rugby. It just doesn't
We're a
feel
rugby
right.
nation, though. We're the #1 rugby team rated in the world at the moment.
And that's great.
You know, and it's a great sporting event.
Well, I'd be interested to see whether or not we pull this off. And because if we don't, then how are we all going to feel? Like,
I don't know, I'll probably throw a rubbish bin through a shop window, but you know. You know, I feel...
You probably won't be alone in
Yeah.
London.
Yeah, but you know, at least we would have made it and hosted a great event. You know, I've had some wonderful weekends so far and some wonderful weeks as part of the World Cup. I went to Namibia versus South Africa. Don't care about either of those teams, but I mean, I love the vibes there. So maybe that's
Well,
what it's
I'm
about.
glad we spent how much money so Connor could enjoy the vibe of a
Rugby game.
Namibian
I don't
rugby
know. Look, it doesn't. Money. Just put money aside. So many people focus on money all the time.
That's not what the Rugby World Cup's about, is it?
No, it's all about good times and party vibes, I reckon, and that's what life should be about.
Yeah, I disagree, but that was interesting.
I mean, each to their own. 2 great French books you brought in, though, and thank you for that. Lily, always a pleasure, and never a chore, really. If you want to get one of these great books and you're in Auckland or Wellington, make sure you head along to Unity Books and pick one up. I'm sure they're able to help you out with any reading that you would like to, any sort of book you'd like to read. That's what I meant to say. All right, we're having a break, and we come back.
I'll let you keep going.
Yeah. Hurrah.